Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Cabin Fever, day 34 since the first day I did this. And today I'm going to take the time to focus on one of my favorite cocktails. If you can call it a cocktail, I guess nowadays you call it a cocktail, the Tom Collins. Now, I thought about this like a couple of hours ago, right? I want to do Tom Collins today. But I know that the Tom Collins like comes with a bunch of baggage, because for me, and like I hope this goes a long way to kind of explain the process that I have in my head for things, right? For me, one of the first things I did, before I even started bartending, I did a diploma in, I don't know if you have those everywhere else. So it's like, it's not a degree or anything, but it's a training course in workplace training and assessment, right? So the idea being teaching you how to walk into a situation, assess like what training needs are there, like what do people need to know. For example, how to put together a test that would test people's skill sets. Like you'd write down all the skills that are needed to do this job. You test people on those skills. You realize where their weak points are, and then you start building a training around those weak points and trying to get everybody onto a set level, right? So you do a training needs analysis, you do all this other stuff. I don't remember much of it. But the one thing I remember was learning about unconscious incompetence. People that are working in the environment but maybe don't realize they don't really know what they're doing, And if before I go shifting the show in the direction that I want it to go, where there's a Negroni episode, and there's a Tom Collins episode, and there's an old-fashioned episode, and there's a margarita episode. Before I do that, I want to know, right, I'm going to do margarita part 1. And part 2 is going to be the Tommy's margarita. So the Tommy's margarita, and then maybe like do a twist, or do I do the margarita episode and we do the classic margarita, we also back it with a Tommy's margarita, and then a twist, right? That's going to make the episode really long. But more important than that, my brain is not wired to take learnings of a Tom Collins. I know how I like to make a Tom Collins. I used to shake them, now I just build them, right, like a lemonade. I use sugar syrup, all that. I'm going to do that today. But actually, I realized I don't want to go making an episode unless I've fully studied everything I can possibly find out up to date. Even though I know what a Tom Collins is, I have a kind of idea of the history. I want to know as much as I possibly can about it before I go making one for a show. So this is episode 1 of a series on the Tom Collins. I think we'll just do a Tom Collins today because I actually really want to drink one. I'm thirsting for one right now. I'm also thirsty for a beer. Do I have a beer and then have a Tom Collins? That's what I might do. Right, I'm going to start with Mitch's Minute because I asked Mitch a question relative to the show today. How smart is that? Right, Mitch, let's find out how many Collins recipes Mitch remembers.
How many Collins? Of course, the day that I've had a big day. What, like Jack Collins and fucking Phil Collins and Bootsy Collins? Oh, I don't know. It feels like I'm getting baited into saying something racist by accident. How many Collinses do I know? Tom Collins was supposed to be called John Collins, so the other ones are fucking Jack Collins. Or is John Collins an Irish Collins? What's a Bootsy Collins? Why can I only think of Bootsy Collins and other terrible things? I don't know. That's not a good one for me today. We had a massive earthquake last night. Felt like somebody was shaking our house. Anyway, I look terrible. I'm gonna go have Collins.
So that was Mitch's memory of how many different Collins. Like, see, the thing that gets me on Mitch's response there is I feel like I'm being baited into saying something racist, which when I first started learning cocktails like 20 plus years ago, 20 years ago, I started with things like there was a Jose Collins and a Pedro Collins and a Pierre Collins, and I think Irish was Michael Collins. One thing I never understood was Jock Collins until like I went to the Isle of Skye with some Scottish people who said that basically certain types of Scottish people were referred to as jocks, right? So the old training that I had was they're all basically the same recipe, but you change out the base and then you kind of give the base the name from what it wasn't Massive Mitch. My mum slept through it. Mitch is from Australia. Australia doesn't have plates. Like it's like literally the flattest, oldest country ever. There's barely any trees. That doesn't shake. Like I'd be shitting my pants if it was an earthquake, especially during COVID. You can't even run outside. Are you meant to run outside? What are you meant to do? All right. Moving on from that. Oh, that beer tastes so good. Oh, I did exercise today. Like every time I do exercise, I feel so much better about myself. Like so much better about myself. I've got a mate called Marco, and he used to run 10Ks every single morning. And if he didn't run the 10Ks, it was like he felt dirty for the day. And now I go running or go cycling, and I feel clean, right? And then I have a beer, and I feel myself, but just a clean version of myself, right? Check this out. I made a video of me cycling just like because I'm coming up with content. But do you know what? The reason I'm sharing this is not because like I want to share it just to show that I'm cycling or whatever. It's actually because it uses stock like license-free music, right? And one thing I realized, the show keeps getting flagged for copyright all the time, and they've just installed a new system into the software that I'm using that will allow me to know that I'm being flagged and stopped for copyright ahead of time. Hopefully it works. But there's always a fear that the show's going to get taken down for copyright. So I'm going to play this cycling video. Listen to the music. Is something like that as the beginning part of the show or like the entry into Mitch appropriate? Or do we just run with like who cares? Let's just use Rick and Morty's theme, right? And if you know some license-free music, then that sounds awesome, that would suit the tone of the show, let me know. Here's the 30-second video while I grab myself some ice. All right. Like imagine instead of having the whole entry into the cabin thing, it's just one of those cheesy like and like, you know, snippets from different parts of the show. It'd be hilarious. It'd be like Friends or something. All right, we could have a laugh track. We could constantly be going to the laugh track all the time. I would say something and it'd be like ha ha ha, you know, like Friends or Big Bang Theory. Anyway, moving on from that. Collins. Do we make a big Collins? Yeah, fuck it. Wait, I have an idea. I'm gonna make 3 little ones. 3 little baby ones. Right? We'll do it on 3 different gins. So I was sure I had some Bombay gin here, But I don't know, did I just drink it without even noticing? I had a ton of it too. It was like a 1 liter bottle. Right, I'm gonna make 3. One of them is gonna be on an aged gin, right? Because I've seen, I'm pretty sure, yeah, Ryan was watching, so I'm making one with Bombay, right? The other 2, I'm gonna use the Whitley Neal, because I got given that. They're very lovely people, sending me some, right? And then I'm gonna go something classic, Plymouth. Right, now, I guess these are 3 very different gins, you could say. Let's get some lemons on the go. Right, so for me, as far as the history of the Collins goes, like the last time I learned anything about the Collins, I knew that it was 1866 or 68, whatever, 86. Jerry Thomas book, one of the editions where he like puts the Tom Collins in it, and he said it was gin and lemonade. But it's difficult for me to swallow that because long before that, people were making like small serve gin punch. So I do remember, but I have to look it back up before episode 2 of the Collins, that they were making small scale gin punch in London. You know, read that in Imbibe, and that's definitely before Jerry Thomas's time. So it's one of those things like, did the person who named it what it is invent it, or is the first people making it, the first recorded use of the recipe, the creator, right? And do we stick with the name Tom Collins because that's what's popular for this particular recipe, and then like say, well, actually people were making that long before, it just was a different name, and that becomes part of the Tom Collins history? That's what I need to figure out. How do I want to represent myself when it comes to this type of stuff? So I'm putting 1 part lemon juice. I'm doing that first, right? Doing the same in each. How do I want to be seen to think about cocktails for the foreseeable future, right? Now, got my funkin' sugar syrup. Oh, love this stuff. I just can't get enough of funkin' sugar syrup. Look at that. 1 part of that. So I'm going 1-1. I'm using a different end for the sugar syrup, I know, but it's a bit easier to clean out at the top end. And then I do 2 parts gin. I used to do 3 parts gin, but now I put a little bit more soda with it because I want it to be longer and less ginny. No offense to gin drinkers. I like my martinis and stuff, but I also like my Tom Collins to be like an adult lemonade, you know? Don't want it to be over the top. Here we go. This guy. All right. So Plymouth is obviously Plymouth style gin. I don't know if this is a London dry. I don't think it is. Traditional botanicals distilled in copper stills. Doesn't say London dry. I should have probably looked that before I decided to use it, whether or not it was London dry. You know what we can do? We can do a London dry version next time when I do a proper Tom Collins episode. I'll actually think about what gins I'm using ahead of time. It'd be great. This stuff. Oh, yep, happy days. Kept the top on. So this is like an aged variant of Bombay. Has everyone seen this before? Is there anyone watching? Right, so aged Bombay, the Whitley Neal version, and then we've got standard Plymouth, right? I was tempted to go Never Never, like super heavy juniper, but I want them to kind of be similar enough that I can see the subtleties in it. Where are you? Come on. I'm really only able to fit 3 cubes of ice in there. That's nasty. All right, 2 more. This guy. So I had a super awesome day off yesterday. Spent the whole entire day hanging with my son, my little man, who is growing up extremely fast. Right, now, they look all different, but the ice in that one has fallen all the way down. These two, the volume of ice at the top is huge, so we're just gonna have to give it a second and then top it up. Lift that. There we go. All right. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Happy days. So we've got 3 different Tom Collins here, all made to roughly the same recipe. I think there might be a bit more soda than what I'd normally put in there. Okay, it's delicious. Very different. It tastes almost like the Plymouth one just works to just blend in with the lemon. So it tastes like a Tom Collins with a nice little bit of lemon sweetness at the top. It's got the juniper in the background. This, I don't know if the gin is like clashy a little bit with the lemon, but I prefer this. I'm not saying I wouldn't like that if I was given it, but it tastes oilier, you know? And what I was looking for in a Tom Collins today was just like a fresh lemonade taste. Now, obviously, the aged one's going to be quite different. Ooh. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. I poured Plymouth in the middle one as well. That might be why it's clashing. There's double the gin. Is that what happened? I'm losing my mind. I'm like straight up losing my mind. Yeah. All right. Where is the... Thanks, guys. One of those. Yeah, I didn't like the middle one as much. It would make sense. Whitley. Yeah, I think the 2 gins weren't getting along with each other inside there. And the half. Not at all getting along with each other. So, have you ever heard of anyone making like a gin grog? You know, people make rum into grogs all the time, mixing several different rums. You don't see them do it with gin. There's probably a good reason for that. That last one of these sucked. I didn't even notice I was doing it. Too many things to concentrate on. Speaking of which, it's been driving me crazy. All right. Heater was still on, so I turn the heater on when I come in to get the place all nice and frosty, but like, or toasty, but it was too toasty. Okay, that's much better. Okay. I was trying to figure out what went wrong there. The double gin. Oh, it's so not good. Right. Now, to do a fair comparison, that's got a zingy sherbetiness to it now. I like the wood influence on it. I can't help myself. which makes me kind of interested to try a Jock Collins. I'm wondering, actually, I wonder if, like, right, this tastes like you've taken Bombay gin and you finished it in like a rum cask. So in my mind, I think, right, if they've discontinued this or I can't get it anymore, but I like that, maybe I would like take my bottle of Bombay, which this is not Bombay, but I'd take my bottle of Bombay and put like, you know, start with small shots and put a dash of bourbon in it, a dash of rum in one, a dash of, say, monkey shoulder, like an easygoing scotch, and see if just adding like a wood character to one of them would actually complement it. In fact, I'm going to do a test. This here, which looks, it'll look black, is at 51.5% alcohol. It is Balvenie's Caribbean Rum that has been bottled after it come out of finishing the casks for Balvenie. So Balvenie rum cask, they were buying ex-rum casks and the casks were coming in inconsistent. So what they did was they bought in actual rum themselves, finished rum, and then they put that rum through casks that they knew were very good quality casks, and then finished those casks, so they were soaked in rum, took the rum out and finished the Balvenie in it, right? But this has been like aged so much that when you smell it, it just smells like wood. It's just wood rum at 50% ABV. So it's so pungently wood, I could probably add like a bar spoon to a bottle of gin and it would taste woody. I'm going to do that. And then I'll see what that actually comes out tasting like. It should be good, but that's my favorite. That's the closest to what I was expecting. And that sherbetiness coming from this is a really pleasant surprise. I'm actually looking forward to revisiting the Tom Collins. I'm going to do as much as I can to study it, learn all the different variations, figure out where I sit on it, if that makes sense, and then do another episode of the Tom Collins. And in that week, I'll do Tom Collins, John Collins, let's say, and I think it was, I can't remember if Vodka Collins was Joe Collins or just a Vodka Collins. I hope it's Joe Collins, because if a Vodka Collins is Joe Collins, out of respect for Joe McCanta, I'm only making my Vodka Collins on Grey Goose. I'm not even going to do a 3 Vodka Collins. I'll just do 1 Vodka Collins. Maybe we do it on Price Point. I'll do Grey Goose and then something cheap. Right, so putting this guy back. Now, what I was trying to like talk about earlier is this thing. I didn't know how to explain the years of getting a certain level of skill and then remembering more so that you don't really know anything. Doesn't matter how much accumulative knowledge you have, if you just don't know, right? And today my wife, who is amazing and knows everything, was questioning herself, which she always does. And I was telling her, look, babe, questioning your abilities is what makes you so good. If you thought you were amazing, like 6 months into being a lawyer, then you wouldn't be growing at the pace that you are. The reason you're growing is because you're constantly questioning yourself, and you apply that questioning yourself to getting better and getting better and getting better, right? And I thought about it, and you know, when you give someone advice, you're partly talking to them and you're partly talking to yourself, because I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks studying fucking live streaming, right? Because every single day, right before I started today, something fucked up. Every single day, one piece of my kit decides not to work. And like I've said 100 times, the kit is either super cheap or super expensive, right? So before I go investing in expensive kit when I've got no money, I'm like, going to figure this shit out, right? I'm going to study it. And now the more I know, the more I realize I don't know anything, right? Every time I'm studying something, I realize I don't know anything. And I wanted to explain that with this, right? I actually, look at that. Isn't it perfect of the times? So like the Dunning-Kruger Effect is what the name of it is, right? And I searched Dunning-Kruger and looked for a video or an image to try to help me explain Dunning-Kruger. So what Dunning-Kruger is they're two dudes who they realize that dumb people don't think they're dumb, which is unconscious incompetence. They don't realize they're not very good at something, right? And so they did a study. I think they did a study at a university or something like that. No, I've got a video actually. They did a study at a university, and they realized that the least performing students had really high, like unusually high perception of how good they were. You know, like they thought they were better than they were, but just stupidly better. And then they did this huge study, and they realized that they were missing the part of the intelligence in their brain that makes them realize that they aren't very good, right? And I've got this amazing video. I'm going to play it at the end that summarizes that. Now, if you are someone who questions themselves and constantly thinks, right, do I really know this? Then you're going to grow at pace. And the Tom Collins for me is a perfect example, because the very first drink I presented to a manager, thinking I'd kind of created, I know I'd done my 2 cocktail bartending courses and all that sort of stuff. I must have learned the Collins at some point, but it just wasn't in my brain. And I'd started making myself, we had sour mix at the time, sour mix and soda. And I was drinking that all the time because, you know, I just needed the sour in my face. And then I came to him with like the gin lemonade, you know, like, because we kept getting orders for gin and lemonade, but I made like gin and fresh lemonade. So it was gin, fresh lemon, sugar, soda. I think there was something else in it. I can't remember what it was, but there was something else in it, but it was such a subtle hint. And he tasted it, and he was like, "Mate, why are you giving me this?" And I said, "It's my gin lemonade, man. It's gonna sell like fucking hotcakes. It tastes like lemonade, but it's got gin in it." And he's like, "Dude, it's a Tom Collins. Read a book." Right? That was at Cuba on the Keys in Dublin a great many years ago. Enda Byrne, I believe the manager's name was. Right? But his name was actually Enda Byrne. And he was just like, "Read a book," and just went off and continued on his day doing his work. So, in the interest of ending with a cool video that summarizes my thoughts on the Tom Collins, or lack of thoughts on the Tom Collins, I thought I would play this video. Now, if you are in America and you're watching, right, now's your opportunity to turn off, because there's a part in it that gets kind of political about America, and I'm trying to stay completely neutral, right? I'm fucking Sweden in this. But this video does a great job of explaining it. It also does a great job of explaining the times that we're living in right now. And I found it as a result of looking for an image or some better explanation for the Dunning-Kruger effect. Great vid. Very good at kind of giving you an idea of modern media and the times we're living in. So yeah, enjoy, and I'll see you at the end of the video.
When MacArthur Wheeler learned that lemon juice was used as invisible ink, he rubbed it on his face and confidently proceeded to rob 2 banks. When the police found him, he was shocked. His disbelief was equal to theirs. He had even taken a picture to check he was invisible. The case inspired experiments by Professors David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They found that the least proficient students dramatically overestimated their own ability. The skills they lacked were the same skills required to recognize their incompetence. Dunning found that the incompetent are often blessed with an inappropriate confidence buoyed by something that feels to them like knowledge. Could the Dunning-Kruger Effect explain some of Trump's actions? We'll get to that, but another cognitive bias certainly shapes his ideas. Salience bias leads the media to focus on the most shocking and negative news, including stories that represent the worst 0.1% of immigrants.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
In fact, immigrants reduce the crime rate. Over the past 30 years, the incarceration rates for Americans born in the US have been 2 to 5 times higher than for immigrants. The cost of our distorted view may include a $20 billion border wall. And can you spot the salience bias in Trump's budget priorities? Bottom of the list is the Environmental Protection Agency. Air pollution alone causes 200,000 early deaths in America each year. But this isn't news. Trump's top priority is defense, with a major budget hike. The US already spends more on defense than the next 7 nations combined. It owns 10 of the world's 18 active aircraft carriers, and on average, the US ships are around twice as big as the rest. But war is always in the headlines, and Trump proposes to increase spending by almost the equivalent of the entire Russian defense budget. When the media is on the attack, an incendiary statement is a powerful diversion, and repetition has a strange effect. In 1968, 2 groups of people were shown nonsense Chinese-style characters, some more frequently than others. 11 out of 12 times, the characters that were shown more often were thought to have more positive meanings. The effect may be due to our brain's preference for things that are easy to process, much in the same way that we prefer sharp images and clear sound. So when Trump repeatedly says he'll bring back manufacturing jobs, people start to believe him.
We will bring our jobs back, Sean. We're going to bring our jobs, as sure as you're sitting there, we are going to bring our jobs back into this country for the first time.
Unfortunately, 86% of those jobs were in fact lost to automation. But how do we explain Trump's claim that climate change was a hoax created by the Chinese? 97% of climate scientists agree that humans are causing global warming, but Trump appointed someone who denies this to head the Environmental Protection Agency. It's the Dunning-Kruger Effect in full force. It affects everyone, from bank robbers to presidents. With any given subject, complete ignorance breeds confidence. So how do we help people see the truth about immigrants and the environment? Psychologists believe our opinions are like protective castle walls, and simply pointing to facts can be futile. Experiments have even shown that people will defend decisions that they never actually made. In one case, people were asked to choose the most attractive faces from several sets of pictures. The pictures were then secretly swapped, and the people were asked to explain their choices. 75% didn't notice the switch and gave reasons for the selections. But don't give up hope just yet. Experiments have identified something that's more convincing than facts alone. In 2008, most Republicans were against bringing troops home from Iraq. A group of them were shown statistics about a dramatic fall in violence and asked if it might be a reason to bring troops home. They were not convinced. A second group was asked to remember a positive memory, a time when they felt good about themselves, before receiving the same statistics. They were much more open to changing their minds. FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss notes that a simple smile triggers an automatic response that makes a real difference. It's not a tactic Trump is known for. And with the media thriving on his incendiary style, the descent into doom-mongering seems unstoppable. But it isn't, because while we see constant gloom, The real world is getting better and better. Over the past 30 years, the number of people living in absolute poverty has declined from 53% to 17%. And in 25 years, infant mortality rates have dropped by 50%. Violent crime has dropped dramatically in the US and many other countries. And around the world, people are receiving far more years of education than ever. When Trump raises fears of immigrant terrorists, keep in mind that since 9/11, no one has died in a terrorist attack by immigrants from the countries he wants to ban. Meanwhile, the Environmental Protection Agency has prevented hundreds of thousands of early deaths from air pollution alone.
Department of Environmental Protection. We are going to get rid of it in almost every form.
The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge.
Right, and on that note, for those of you who hung out through that entire video, it had a nice ending, but it summarized the reason I wanted to study at one drink at a time, to learn one product at a time, and focus on one thing on each episode, because then I can take all of that I already have, add to it a day's worth of updating myself, trying to get the latest, greatest information, and then distilling it and giving it out in a short 20-minute, maybe 10 rant. And the Dunning-Kruger Effect, I wanted to share that. I wanted to focus on that this episode because in the last couple of weeks, I've seen on social media an explosion of the argument for like mixologist versus bartender taking over a lot of bartender forums and picking up more and more momentum, where people are like, I'm a mixologist this. And like, I always say that, you know, every professional bartender is a mixologist. And, you know, the longer you've been in the industry, the less likely you are to call yourself a mixologist. And there's no clear definition as to why people that have been around for a while don't like the term mixologist. But let me go back to the very first time I was asked what I thought of it. I said, in a magazine, it didn't make it to print, that to me, wiping down the bar is something that I do more often than anything else, right? But you don't see anybody who works in a bar calling themselves a bar top wipeologist. There's no bar top wipeologist or guest banterologist. Like, if I seen someone be like, I'm not a bartender, I'm a banterologist, I'd be like, fucking legend. Okay, cool. You focus on banter, you have chat with guests, I get that, you're a chatologist, cool. But mixologist, because you're deciding, despite it not being the only thing you do, to focus on mixology as if that is above everything else you do in a bar, it's more important. Cleaning the bar is as important as being able to come up with a drink recipe. Like, if you can come up with an amazing drink recipe, you're like the ultimate. Every single drink is about like a banger, you know. You're the guy that come up with the, like, you know, I don't know, like Sam Ross, for example. Sam Ross is famous for making great drinks, right? The guy doesn't, he's not like going out and trying to sell the fact that he can come up with great drinks. He turns up for work, he cleans the bar down, he serves the guest, his focus is on the guest because he's a bartender, right? So as soon as you start saying that the guest and cleaning the bar and all this isn't as important, you're a mixologist because you're capable of making a drink. Mate, you know, by moving everything else out of the way and focusing on one thing, you're only demonstrating a conscious incompetence. You're demonstrating that you don't have the mind to fully understand how important looking up and being aware of the room is, putting money in the till, You know, the longer you bartend, the more you realize those things are important. Or if you've been bartending for a really long time and you haven't realized it, that's the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Anyway, we'll pick that up on another day.